Essential vlog. I hope you're all really well and you've had a great start to 2018. And today's vlog is all about you. So just before Christmas, I invited you to ask us questions in one of our previous vlogs by writing questions in the comments below. And then I said that we would answer them in the new year. So that's what I'm here to do today. I'm going to go through all the questions that people asked us, and thanks everybody who took part and engaged. It's great to hear from you. And then I'm also welcoming and encouraging questions from you today as well. So in the same format, just write any questions that you'd like answered in the comments below, and this Q&A will become a regular feature of the So Essential vlog, and we'll be able to interact with you and share our expertise and our knowledge with you. So yeah, really excited to be doing that on an ongoing basis. All of the products and the tutorials I mentioned today are available on our website and on our blog, and we've put the links to those below. So please just click on those links if you need to find out more information about any of the things that I've talked about today. And just before I get started, as always, I should just mention what I'm wearing. So this is one of my favourite tops that I've ever made, which is Simplicity 8454. And it is made in a beautiful dark floral cotton lawn. I just absolutely love the ruffle on it. It's just so feminine and pretty, and I just really enjoy wearing this. I've worn it loads and loads, and I know I'll be wearing it in the spring as well. And then I'm wearing my Simplicity 1370 skirt, which I made in our beautiful medium blue denim. And again, yeah, this has had a whole load of wear, so all of the patterns and fabrics for these and details of them are on the blog and on the website. So without further ado, I shall start to answer your questions. So the first question I've got is from a lady called Kathleen Meadows, who asked whether you would ever use clear elastic in a neckline of a garment, and the answer is yes, you most definitely could, Kathleen. In fact, it actually featured as a tip in our blog post last week, which was all about sewing with knit and jersey fabrics. So it's only really suitable for sewing with knit or jersey fabrics, but a really good example of when you could use it is if you ever are making a wrap dress or top where the pieces cross over at the front. I know I've had instances where really annoyingly that top layer just keeps gaping open when you're wearing the top, and using the clear elastic is a really good way to avoid that problem in that circumstance. So if you're sewing it with your sewing machine, just stretch the elastic slightly as you sew, and just sew it along the raw edge of the fabric with a zigzag stitch. Or alternatively, if you've got an overlocker, you may be able to feed the elastic through the hole in the overlocker foot, because the elastic's only very narrow. And again, just stretch it just slightly as you sew it into position, but just sew it along the raw edge of that piece that you want to keep in place. And then once you've sewn it into place, you just press the raw edge in and finish it in your preferred method, and that will avoid that annoying gaping problem. So you can find the clear elastic on our website. As I said, the links are below, and yeah, it's a great little tip to try at home, but always test all of these things on scraps of fabrics first, just to make sure you're happy with the results. Okay, so the next question that I'm going to answer is from Ebony Smallwood, so thanks Ebony. Ebony said that she has problems doing a reverse stitch with her walking foot, and she asked how she could secure the ends of her stitching because she doesn't seem to be able to reverse stitch with her walking foot. So what we'd say to that, Ebony, is you should be able to do a reverse stitch with a walking foot. So if you're having problems, just double check that the foot's definitely compatible with your machine, that you've definitely attached it properly as well. If you have, you should be able to do that, but if you're still having problems, you could try doing a fixed stitch, which is where the sewing machine just sews 2 or 3 stitches in the same place. If you haven't got the facility to do that on your machine, you could hold the fabric still and just sew 2 or 3 stitches on top of one another just for the same effect. And then if all of those things fail and you're still struggling, the other suggestion is just to leave long tails of thread at the ends of your lines of stitching, and you'll be able to tie those. But it's just worth mentioning, on our website we do sell feet, and we do feature compatibility charts as well. So so that you can check that whichever sewing machine foot you want to buy is compatible with your machine, and you know that you're getting the right one. So that's definitely worth having a look at, but hopefully that will resolve that problem for you, Ebony. And if you are having any more problems, just drop us an email and we'll be happy to try and help. Next up, we had a question from Bill Parsons, who asked whether we could share tips on how to sew a zip into men's trousers or jeans. And you're in luck, Bill, because we actually wrote quite a detailed, in-depth, step-by-step tutorial on how to do a fly front zip, which you can find on our blog. So the notes for this vlog, if you go through to the link to our blog below, you'll see that this is the most recent blog post, and within that I've written the transcript for this vlog, and you'll be able to find a link to that specific article. But also, if you just go to our blog following the link below, there are categories on the blog, and if you select the how-to section, you will find that tutorial in there, and it's really helpful because there's step-by-step instructions with clear photos of every stage of inserting that zip. So hopefully that will help you, Bill, to find an easy way to insert one of those zips. And if you are looking for trouser zips at all, we've got a good range of those on the website as well, so you can just follow the link to our website below for that. So the next question is quite an in-depth and meaty question, but I think it's one that a lot of people will be quite interested to hear about. And that was from Amelia Ann Stiggins, who said she's recently started sewing and she really wants to get to the point where she can make really well-fitting garments, and she'd like to understand some simple fitting alterations and pattern adjustments. She'd like to understand how and when to make them, because ultimately to her the point of sewing really is to get those garments that fit really, really well. But she also said it can be quite overwhelming because there's so many resources out there, and you know, sometimes it's difficult to know where to start. So the first thing I wanted to say, Amelia Ann, is I couldn't agree more. I felt exactly the same as you when I first started sewing, and as a result I actually avoided trying to adjust patterns and get them to fit better when I first started sewing, because I just wanted to get on with the actual sewing itself. So there is a lot to answer in this question, so I thought I'd break it down into 4 or 5 key areas. So the first thing I think that it's really important to say is that fitting and alterations and adjustments, it's, you know, really is a matter of trial and error. You know, there is no one size fits all of us are individual, all of our bodies are completely different. So I think if you're really serious about getting better at fitting your garments, I think the first thing you've got to do is understand and accept that you're going to have to allow yourself some time to experiment, to play around, to try different things, to make a toile, to make adjustments, you know, and you've just got to get into that mindset, really. As frustrating as that can be sometimes, when you just want to get down and sit down and sew something and have that instant gratification, if you want to get really good at fitting and alterations, you know, you have to allow yourself some time to do that. But it is well worth it in the end, because you will get to the point with some of the fitting alterations where you just know, I have to do that every time I make that type of top or every time I make that type of skirt. So yeah, definitely worth dedicating the time. But that's the first thing, is just give yourself that time. Try not to get stressed or too overwhelmed, and just look at it as a learning experience. It's all a learning process. It's all about experimentation, and you know, it really is a wonderful thing, I think, once you get into it and just allow yourself that time, because you can learn so much. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to understand where are your particular issues, because we are all completely different. We all have completely different shaped and sized bodies, so it's really starting to understand, well, where do my problems lie? Where do my garments not fit me properly? And you could do this by looking at ready-to-wear garments or something that you've made, but you might notice drag lines or creases in certain areas. You might notice tightness in certain areas but not in others, you know, and you need to stand in front of the mirror and have a look at your garments and really understand, where do the problems lie. And then once you've done that, we go on to the third step, which is then finding yourself a really good resource that you can use that is easy to understand and easy to follow to identify how to tackle those problems. So the one I always recommend, just because I've always used it and it's been amazing and really, really very helpful, and Angela, my mother-in-law, who's been sewing for 60 years, swears by it as well, is the Fit for Real People book by Palmer and Pletch. Now, unfortunately, this book is so popular, it is completely out of stock in the UK at the moment, which I know is a little frustrating, but there is a shipment coming into the UK early this year, hopefully in the spring, and we have actually got an allocation on that shipment coming to us. So we have got an option for you to pre-order a copy on our website. You can see the link, if you follow the link below, you'll go through our website and be able to do that. But this book is fantastic because it tells you how to address your problems. It's got clear step-by-step instructions, clear illustrations and diagrams as well. It's just really, really useful. You can look up your particular problem that you think you've got and start to really understand and work out how to tackle your particular issues. But again, there are other fitting books out there that people really enjoy using, you know, so it's just finding one that's kind of a good all-rounder, I think, and or if you've got specific problems, you know, you might want to focus in on those, but get yourself a good resource that you think, I can use this as a starting point. And then also it is useful then to start looking on the internet at other people's, I always go on people's blogs and things and read about whether they've had the same issues as me, but again it just goes back to that, allowing yourself the time to do that. But it'll be a lot more focused once you actually understand what your fit issues are. And then once you've done that, I just thought I'd talk about, you know, let's just talk about what we mean by adjusting pattern pieces, and when you do that and when you adjust the garment itself, you know, you might do that in some instances, because I think it can seem really overwhelming and scary, but it's fairly simple in most cases. So when you're adjusting pattern pieces, generally you're adding something on or you're taking something away. The pattern piece is either too big or long or wide for you and you need to take something away from it, or it's the opposite, it's too small and you need to add something on. So an example of adding on is my high round back adjustment that I do, and I did a really detailed blog post about this a few weeks ago, so if you follow the links to the blog below you'll find that, and in that instance I've got what they call a high round back, so my back slightly curves round at the top like that, which means that a standard pattern piece isn't big enough to cover my back, you know, it doesn't account for that curve at the top. So what I need to do is I need to increase the surface area of that back pattern piece, and by following the steps in the Palmer and Pletch book, I know that I need to cut a slash into the pattern piece, which just means, you know, cut a line into the pattern piece, and they tell you exactly where to do it and how far to do it. And then I need to insert a piece of tissue paper to just increase the surface area, the length of that pattern piece. And then I take that pattern piece, lay it flat on the fabric and cut the fabric out, and it just means that that length of fabric then will account for my high round back. So that's a really good example of adding something in. In terms of taking something away, there is the example of, say, a neckline. I've had this a few times. So say I've made a toile and I've noticed that the neckline is gaping, so it's kind of just sitting forward from me here. What I can do to resolve that in some cases is I could just take a pinch of the pattern piece, just a very small pinch potentially, like so, and sellotape that down and just almost create like a little dart in the pattern piece like that, and then tape that down, and there I've reduced the surface area of that pattern piece, and you know, then I won't have as much fabric here and it won't be gaping. So that's just in very simple terms and just a couple of examples, because it is a huge area and everybody's different and there's so many different alterations that you might need to make, but that's like the very basics of what you might need to do. The other thing to talk about is You may actually just adjust the garment as well. You may make the garment up, you may be fairly confident, having made it before, for example, that it will fit you, and then you might make some adjustments to the garments itself. And I often do this with skirts, because skirts are quite easy. The construction's quite easy, they're quite simple to put together. So I might make a skirt like this one I'm wearing today, and I might think, okay, I'm not going to put the waistband on, but I am going to just base the side seams, base the back, not worry about the zip, and just try it on and see how it fits. And then upon trying it on, I might decide that there's excess fabric. Clearly there isn't on this one because I've fitted it properly, but I might think, oh, it's a bit loose around the hips, and in which case I can just pinch the excess fabric, and I can look at, well, how much do I need to take off there? Okay, I need 1/4 of an inch off each side, and then I can just move the seam line accordingly when I come to sew the actual final stitching line. But again, I would just probably base that and try it on again before I then finally sewed the final stitching line. So they're just some examples of, you know, basic pattern alterations or fitting alterations that you might want to do. And the other one that Amelia Ann did ask about, she mentioned that I said I'd taken the shoulders in on one of the tops or the dresses that I made. Well, I do apologise, because I've never taken the shoulders in on anything. I haven't. That is a problem I don't have. Taking the shoulders in would mean taking the shoulder seam and moving it across, which is a common fitting alteration that some people need to make, but I don't have to do that. I think what I was referring to, Amelia Ann, was actually bringing the neckline in, because I felt, and this was just purely down to preference, I felt that the neckline, it probably started about here, and I just felt it was a bit wide, so I decided to move it in a bit. And this is a classic example of when you add on. So if you look at this pattern piece here, this is the one that I actually used, and you can see I've just added this piece of tissue on here, because that has just moved that neckline in for me there. There is also this additional tissue at the top there, which is because I also adjusted where the shoulder seam was, because I've got forward shoulders. But this was just a good example of when you might need to use tissue paper just to move that that raw edge really of the fabric, so that you can alter it to suit you. But again, as you do that, you do always need to consider the knock-on effects on the other areas of the garment. But yeah, that's pretty much it really in terms of how much I can cover in this Q&A vlog. And you know, we do always put very detailed tutorials and blog posts on the blog, so do have a look at those as well. But I also thought it would be useful to just mention some of the tools and things that I find useful when I'm making alterations and adjustments. So firstly, tailor's chalk, or a Chaco pen, and I love these Chaco pens. They're absolutely amazing, because what they do, they've got like a little wheel on the end, and they allow you to draw your chalk in a really fine line, which is excellent for if you are, say, marking a new seam line onto a garment. Say you've decided you want to take 1/4 of an inch off somewhere. These pens will allow you to really accurately draw that line, and then you can follow that line for your stitching or whatever. But tailor's chalk as well is a very useful alternative, so I definitely always use my Chaco pen. And then the other thing that is really useful is tissue paper. Yeah, making your alterations to your pattern pieces, you can use tissue paper. The other thing is, if you don't want to make adjustments to your actual pattern pieces, you can use tracing paper to trace your pattern, and then make your alterations to your traced version of the pattern. And then finally, the other tool that is really useful for when you're making these sorts of alterations is a curve ruler. So this has got, you know, one side of it you can use as a normal ruler, and it's got measurements and markings on it, and then the other side has got a curve. And these are particularly useful, again, just for when you're redrawing seam lines, or if you're changing the neckline on something, you know, and you want to use a curve. Those tools can be really, really useful for that. So I hope that's given you just a bit of confidence really, Amelia, and just to have a go, to work through logically and understand what your problems are, then research those, but then overall just be prepared to kind of give it a go, allow yourself that time, that experimentation time, and yeah, hopefully you'll be on the road to better fitting garments, which is important to all of us, I'm sure. We also had a really interesting and unusual question from a gentleman called Jim Starr, so thanks Jim for this. But Jim was looking for advice really on how to sew. He wants to sew protective padded foam onto sportswear tops for a sport that him and his family like to take part in, and he just didn't know which machine we would recommend for this sort of work. So it's a really interesting and unusual question, but our advice, Jim, would be definitely to use a cover stitch machine for this task. They are designed for working with that sort of garment and that sort of fabric and sportswear, so we think they'll work really well for that. We'd recommend the Brother CV3550, which is a double-sided cover stitch machine. So what that means is you'd be able to work from either the right side or the wrong side of the garment, and still get the same results, the same effect in the stitches on both sides, which is a really nice feature. And there's just a lot of options for different stitches on that machine as well, so that is on the website. If you pop on and have a look, you'll see all of the details there, and we're always happy as well to talk you through if you've got any questions or you need any advice. We've got a team of experts that are happy to talk to you about those. An alternative to the double-sided one, it would be the Brother CV3440, and we thought that would perform this task really well as well. So the other thing that I thought it'd be worth mentioning as well is if you are going down this road of making your own sportswear, we've had some really exciting new products in recently, and this is two of them. So these are really bright, gorgeous colours that I really love. Clearly they're not colours everybody loves, but there is a whole range of really amazing colours now in this stuff, which is woolly nylon. So if you haven't heard of woolly nylon, it's a super soft, super stretchy thread that you can use in your overlocker in the upper loopers, or on your cover stitch machine in the lower loopers, and yeah, it's super stretchy, it's super soft, so it's absolutely perfect for sportswear and things like that, and it really fills in the stitches a lot more than a normal overlocking thread as well. So I just thought I'd give those a mention, Jim, because if you want to make your sportswear really snazzy and individual and unusual, I just thought they might be of interest for you, and you can find those on the website, so just follow the link below. Okay, so that's all from me today. Thank you so much to everybody who put your questions in the comments last time. It's really lovely to engage with you. I hope you found our answers informative and helpful. And to everybody else, please take part this time. Leave your questions in the comments below and we'll be really happy to answer them and to read them out for you next time. If you like what you've seen today, as always, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.